Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, welcome to Monday, everyone. My name is Nick Reed as we kick off the week in our number one, streaming live, KSGF.com. Also, you can watch us on YouTube if you'd like to do that. See in studio. And that is Springfield's Talk 1041. Any show that you miss, or of the show that you miss, of course, we do have the podcast section up in all the normal podcast places, Spotify, iTunes, also our KSGF app. There's this conference that was taking place in Munich, and for the United States, particularly for Democrats, it's essentially become a location for has-beens that want to still stay relevant and those who want to be president of the United States. Hence Hillary Clinton being there, Gavin Newsom being there, Gretchen Whitmer being there, Ocasio-Cortez being there. And I am just, for our country, a little, I don't know, it's annoying to me that because of the women that Democrats choose to put in leadership positions, the United States potentially sends this message to the rest of the world that women from the United States are a bunch of idiots, which is completely untrue. Now, Democrat women are. They just are. I'm not talking about policy different situations here. Now, Hillary Clinton, I think, is a bit different. And there is a generational component to this. Hillary Clinton, she plays the dummy sometimes. She has some smarts up there. She has the ability to be calculating. The ditzy girl part that she has played on a number of occasions has been to try and escape any sort of public repercussions for destroying evidence that was subpoenaed, for sharing top secret classified information illegally on unsecure servers, and to essentially anyone that was within her circle of influence. And you may recall when she was asked about the fact that she, after her computer or hard drives were subpoenaed, that she hired that company to wipe them clean. And when she was asked about it, she's like, I don't, with a rag, I don't even understand what this stuff means. She also claimed that the documents she illegally gave people access to that had the clear classified marking on it, the C with a circle, that as Secretary of State, she thought that meant that it was a copy, that C meant copy, and just really was just a confused little girl who didn't know any better. So her displays of stupidity are more strategic. But then you have what is the current and future female of the Democrat Party, the Gretchen Whitmers, the Ocasio-Cortez, the Jasmine Crockett's. Cori Bush, by the way, she's running again in St. Louis. Cori Bush was one of the Sob Squad members that was defund the police, and she got primaried out by the Democrats because she was such an embarrassment that if they could replace her with another Democrat, that was their ultimate desire, and they managed to do so. She's running for re-election again, and why not? Because we see in these primaries the Democrat voter tends to default to the dumbest human being that is on the lineup. Now, the reason this is coming to the forefront is because some of these players were at this big conference over in Europe, and I'm telling you, the one thing that does shock me, we're going to play some of this audio. Hillary Clinton was Hillary Clinton, but you got Gretchen Whitmer, Ocasio-Cortez. The one thing that really does surprise me, in a world in which I would like to think I can never be surprised any longer by these people, is that the lack of preparedness for questions that you must assume you're going to get, and don't have anything. The lack of prep to even be able to BS your way through something. It is remarkable. Ocasio-Cortez was asked about China and our policy with Taiwan, and if there was some sort of invasion, what she thought the United States should do. She made Kamala Harris look like a straight-A student with her answer. Gretchen Whitmer was asked about Ukraine. Now, mind you, these people voluntarily go over there, and they get picked because their people lobby. When I say they get picked to be part of these town hall forums, talking about international issues. And so they lobby to be on these panels, to be displayed as experts when it comes to these issues. Gretchen Whitmer's asked about Ukraine, and she's like, I don't really even know. Maybe somebody else can answer that question a little bit better. It is embarrassing. The women that Democrats choose to put up as the best and brightest within the Democrat Party. The fact that they can't seemingly find any female that, now I know what many of you are thinking. Well, of course, because there are no intelligent females that are liberal. And increasingly, that appears to be what I think is undeniably the truth. Because, again, in the past, you could get the Hillary Clintons and some of these other female Democrat politicians, Dianne Feinstein before she started to lose it, and some of these others that, while you might disagree with them and they at times are... You just think, how can they believe these policies? They could at least speak in a way that made them sound as if they knew what they were talking about. And there appears to be no female Democrats other than these, the 70, 80-year-old ones, the Hillary Clinton, the ones that are on their way out. They just don't have any of them. All right. All that being said, I think we're waiting. We're a little bit delayed on fresh news from our friends over at Ozarks First, so we're going to go ahead and get the latest weather update from Sarah Myers.
All right, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy, dense fog before 7 a.m., otherwise sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Wednesday, sunny with a high near 73.
All right, let's start with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton making a couple of appearances here over in Munich, and one of them, it was a discussion on women's rights, and Hillary Clinton was, I guess, the guest host, if you will. So the setting is you got Hillary Clinton in a chair, and then she's interviewing the point person, the expert for the world to listen to when it comes to women's rights. And then you've got people in chairs, and these are all, I say, town hall style, but this is the big European event, and so like the audience, she noted Nancy Pelosi was there. It's all of these people, and the individual that was being interviewed as the point person for the world when it comes to these different issues, particularly when it comes to women's rights, of course, was a man that pretends to be a woman and elected to Congress. And you listen to the way that Hillary Clinton introduces this guy as just this great, brave, trailblazing woman, and it's just, I can't imagine what it's like to be a woman, to sit there and listen to this stuff, and to watch leadership of a political party on the world stage take a man out of all the billions and billions and billions of women, intellectual, smart women out there, and to have one human being to pick for that interview as the point person on these particular issues, and you pick a guy who claims to be a woman. I mean, the absurdity. And the fact that you have still these so-called feminists that will run around and claim that Donald Trump is a danger to women, while his political opposition is literally erasing from these positions of honor, erasing women, replacing women with men, and saying, "Oh no, this is a woman," because he decided he wanted to be. That's all it takes for a guy. Guy doesn't have to go through all of the things that an actual woman goes through, doesn't have to go through the same form of growing up and puberty and just all of the things that make a woman that I, as a man, can't articulate. That, because this guy puts on some makeup and maybe had some cosmetic surgery, you're no different than him. He is the exact same as you. Erasing everything that it actually means to be a real woman. You can't even say reducing what it means, or because that suggests that it has some value. But when you allow a man to just say, "Oh yeah, I'm a woman," and that's what you define as an actual woman, you have eliminated what it means to be a woman. She also was part of a discussion, the West-West divide, what remains of common values. And the moderator was a Brownwyn Maddox, some gal. She's the director and chief executive of Chatham House. It's a think tank in London. This is where all the brilliant people get together and talk about these things and then allow us to observe. And she had asked Clinton about the culture rift in the U.S. as it relates to Russia and Ukraine. And, of course, Hillary Clinton just, she becomes somewhat unhinged. And she's ripping Donald Trump's policy when it comes to Ukraine and saying that what Donald Trump is trying to do in terms of work out a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine is nothing but a gift to Putin, and it is two dictators working together in order to screw over the Ukrainian people. Now, of course, the problem with her assessment is that all of NATO is behind Trump's efforts. It demonstrates what an isolated world that Hillary Clinton and the anti-Trump people live in. You have numerous world leaders that have very openly said, what we're behind Trump on this. There's one person that can make this happen. It's Donald Trump. They are the ones that are applauding him. The world leaders of NATO that have spoken out on this have spoken out on there being one hope, and it's Donald Trump. They praise and applaud his efforts. They are all on board. This isn't NATO against Donald Trump when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. This is NATO has welcomed Donald Trump's approach and said, hey, we're with you, guy. You're the one clearly. If anyone can get this done, it is you. And they haven't said that simply behind closed doors. They have said it very openly for the world to hear. Then you have Hillary Clinton, this old, washed-up relic of the Democrat Party, trying to stay relevant, and she's given the assist in staying relevant by being invited to events like this. But in fairness to the folks who put these events on, if you are looking for some high-profile Democrat woman to have come and speak on these issues, there really aren't a tremendous amount of those individuals from which you could choose from the United States. That's how you end up with Ocasio-Cortez over there. But you want to talk about Hillary Clinton speaking about a world, and in the context of a world that is not in existence, and that is while NATO is lockstep, arm in arm with Donald Trump on these deals that the United States has been trying to craft together between Ukraine and Russia, while Hillary Clinton is portraying this world in which it's just Donald Trump and Putin together, and NATO is opposed to it. Everyone's opposed to it. This is the single worst thing in the entire world, and it is deplorable that anyone would support it. Well, anyone is the dozens of members of NATO. Who's the isolationist now? We're going to take a break, and when we return, at one point, the foreign minister of Czechoslovakia, the Czech foreign minister, the Czech Republic, has an opportunity to speak, and he starts to speak a little bit to the truth, of which Hillary Clinton makes it very clear she does not care for. So we'll have that exchange coming up here, plus Ocasio-Cortez, Gretchen Whitmer as well, embarrassing women on behalf of the United States, or the United States on behalf of women, whichever way you want to look at it. All ahead. I'm Nick Reed. Hillary Clinton getting essentially called out in Munich during a panel discussion on the West-West divide, what remains of common values, and she was portraying the Trump administration's approach to Ukraine and Russia as just this atrocious, horrific, mind-boggling approach. Now, of course, that position is one out of step with what's going on in the world and the fact that all of NATO is behind Donald Trump. NATO is allowing Trump to take the lead on this, and they have openly said, collectively and separately, the separate members' leadership, that there's one person that can do it, and it's Donald Trump. And the hope of the bloodshed halting would not even be on the table, and it wasn't on the table, if it were not for Donald Trump. So Hillary Clinton is at this conference as some sort of expert when it comes to analyzing world relationships and foreign affairs, and she is speaking to a reality that does not exist. Also part of the panel discussion is the Czech foreign minister, who began his portion of the discussion noting that it's pretty clear Hillary just doesn't really like Donald Trump.
We will come back, I suspect, to the conservatism and liberalism clash within the West, but thank you for that. Peter, do you agree that the Trump administration's actions on Ukraine have produced a rift in the West?
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
That is absolutely true, but do I not like him? I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world, and I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of it.
Peter.
What I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So, we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having rights?
No, let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of us think that there is more than one or more than two gender. I think there is male and female, and the rest probably is a social construct. So this is something that went too far.
But does that justify selling out the people of Ukraine who are on the front lines dying to save their freedom and their two genders? If that's what you're worried about?
Can I please finish my points? I'm sorry that that makes you nervous. I'm really sorry for that.
It makes me nervous. It makes me.
Let Peter finish, please. Let Peter finish, please.
I have to say one more thing. You said that Ukraine fights for our future and for our freedom. I think first Ukraine fights for Ukraine's future, Ukraine's freedom, and Ukraine's sovereignty and independence.
I wanted to include that last portion there because though it wasn't necessarily the point of the exchange, that is such a truth that gets misrepresented, and the left, when it comes to their pet project. Now, when it comes to democracy in countries like Venezuela, of course, we should have no interest. We should impeach Trump. But when it comes to a country like Ukraine, they portray it as this completely selfless effort by the great Zelensky, who's actually fighting for the world. And as the Czech foreign minister noted here, no. This is for them. It doesn't mean it's not noble. Doesn't mean that it isn't a fight that should occur. And it doesn't even mean that we shouldn't necessarily support them in some capacity. But it can enough with this. This is for the world democracy. This is to defend our democracy here in the United States. This is to defend democracy in France. This is to defend them. That's not why Zelensky's doing this. And while some could argue, though I disagree with it, that, well, if Ukraine went, then Poland would be next, and then France, and then Europe, and then the United States. Zelensky is not doing it for these reasons. He's doing it for his own country, as he should. To the exchange between the Czech foreign minister and Hillary Clinton herself, see, this is not a venue in which people, particularly women on the left, are supposed to be challenged. This is a venue in which the left, the academics, are supposed to come together and criticize the people in the world who are actually doing meaningful things and talk about this fantasy land that, well, if people would just do this, if people would just listen to us and do that, everything would be fixed. This is a venue in which they are supposed to be, people like Hillary Clinton, allowed to make just absurd declarations that are completely out of step with reality and not be challenged. And you could hear Hillary Clinton did not care for the fact that you had a foreign leader sitting up there on the stage saying, yeah, no, what you're saying, that's just not right. And he was unmoved by, the gender card and just she reduced herself to arguing, again, like a just some sort of high school level left winger, in which once you start putting facts before them. Oh, you mean like women's rights? Oh, we're not supposed to be allowed to vote? What does that have to do with anything? I suppose calling him a racist wasn't in any way, shape, or form applicable, so she instead played the "you hate women" card. You know what is remarkable, though, if you pull back and you look at all, the forest in its entirety? What does it say about the Democrat Party when you have a former Democrat Secretary of State, a former Democrat presidential candidate on foreign soil, trashing on our country while foreign leaders are defending our country? Generally, when there is some sort of debate occurring that is regarding a country and whether that country is a country of good or bad, the person who is representing that country does the defending of the country, while the opposition is the one that is pointing out the flaws, that is taking the opposite position. But the Democrats today have become so anti-American that they find themselves facing foreign leaders that are defending the United States, a country that is not their own, in the face of their trashing on us. I think that says a tremendous amount of the state of the Democrat Party today. Let's get the latest traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see patchy dense fog before 7 a.m., otherwise sunny with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
Tax season underway. Pinnaker Honda helping you max your tax refund, which I've got a story, incidentally, we'll talk about later, what they're reporting is the average increase in tax refund that thus far people who have been filing are receiving due to the big, beautiful bill. What would you do with yours? Well, you can get in a brand new 26 Honda HR-V Sport for only $289 a month, or drive home the super sporty 26 Honda Civic Sedan Sport for only $179 a month. 25 Pilot, now $3,000 off with rates as low as 2.49%. And there are all sorts of great certified pre-owned vehicle deals going on through March 2nd. So you've got a couple of 3 weeks on that with 1.49% financing available. Huge selection on quality pre-owned vehicles, over 30 under $20K as of last week. So I'm sure some of those still on the lot for the taking, and a great amount of leases too for those of you who like to do the lease vehicles. So leasing, buying, new, certified, any which way, you can certainly maximize your refund with Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. We've got underway Trace Adkins, Black Oak Amphitheater in Lampe, coming up June 13th. It is a Saturday, and your chance to win tickets every day this week, a different keyword. Now, are these a pair? Is this a registration opportunity every day for a pair, or is there a pair a day? Does this make sense, what I'm asking?
It is the first one.
Okay, so we have a pair of tickets that we will be giving away for this, and you have 5 opportunities to enter every day, different keyword. Today's keyword is Trace, T-R-A-C-E. Text that to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, which is 417-447-KSGF, and that will be your entry. And again, you can do that again every day of the week. It'll be a different keyword every day. And good luck. That's all the information I have about that. I suppose, well, are they available to purchase yet?
Yeah, I think that they went on pre-sale sometime last week,
Okay.
I want to say.
It seems as if, well, generally the way these things work is the ticket giveaways are coordinated with either the lead up to the opening of the box office or around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it isn't now, or now they do the pre-sale thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're on pre-sale already.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
What does that put you in queue?
I
Pre-sale,
think so.
I guess that's the way that works. Okay. All right.
I don't know. They might be for sale.
Well, sometimes I know what happens. I've never really been a big concert guy. But increasingly with my wife and the girl child, different concerts they want to go to, and I'll come across that, like, you get pre-access to purchase your tickets, and that usually involves being signed up with their newsletter. Some places do, I think. Some places, well, it just depends.
They are available for purchase.
All right, so you can go ahead and purchase and get yourself signed up to win some by texting Trace to 447-KSGF. Ocasio-Cortez. Have you seen this?
No. Is this the 40-second ramble? Is this the one that you're going to play?
Well, now you're going to have to narrow it down. We are talking about Ocasio-Cortez here. Have you heard it or seen it?
No, I saw a couple of headlines about it.
All right. So she's at the Munich Security Conference. Now, this is a security conference. Let's just, before we play the audio, understand what we're talking about here. First, what we're not talking about. What we're not talking about is some random town hall event in her district in which any and all questions can be asked, including questions that are of a subject matter that she might not necessarily be in tune with. This is about security. This is the whole conference. And so you have folks from all over the world coming together to hear the brilliant minds that are chosen to be the experts when it comes to national security and international security. Ocasio-Cortez was chosen as one of these experts. Now, clearly, when it comes to issues on the world stage, there are a number of them that are unavoidably front and center, one being China and Taiwan. Another being Russia and Ukraine. There are just some of these that, without question, are going to be discussed.
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Good job. This is her debut to the world.
And as I mentioned earlier, this is the thing about it. Don't you know you are going to be asked some question regarding China and Taiwan, just like you surely must be expected to answer questions about NATO. Somebody's probably going to ask about Greenland. Someone's going to ask about Ukraine, Russia. There are these no-brainer questions that are going to be asked, and for her to seem as if she doesn't even know what the question is about. If a person had no clue, zero, regarding China and Taiwan, that's the sort of answer they would give. Stumbling around, talking about, whatever the hell she was. I don't even know what she was talking about other than the end, and we just really hope that doesn't happen. Oh, okay, thanks. So many problems with this. One, can we finally acknowledge and we've got Gretchen Whitmer, she's wanting to be president of the United States as well, another Democrat woman. We're going to play her audio coming up, and she is, in different ways, just as embarrassing. In terms of events like this itself, can we acknowledge that these are not events that we should take seriously in terms of listening to the people that they tell the world are experts that should be listened to when it comes to these issues? This is a joke. This is a complete and absolute joke. And while one can easily argue this isn't it's not new territory for these international events, even when you would have individuals that perhaps could string sentences together in a coherent manner. We'll use John Kerry as former Secretary of State as an example. He is an individual that can at least, if you don't know what the subject matter is at all, but you hear him, you can easily think, well, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. It's gotten to the point, however, at least when it comes to Democrats, they have reduced themselves in quality to such a degree that the people they have to offer up on the world stage as experts when it comes to these issues are so bad that a person who has no concept of the subject matter itself can still tell neither does she. I'm not somebody that knows a tremendous amount about cars, let's say specifically transmissions. If I go to a conference and somebody has asked a question about transmissions and they are giving an answer. It's an expert. This is a person foremost expert when it comes to training. They really truly know. They can take them apart, put them together with blindfolded backwards, so forth. And while they're speaking, I may have no clue what they're talking about, but I can sense that. They certainly sound like they know what they're talking about. But if you take someone who has no clue, just no clue, you could have potentially somebody that is such a good BSer, I may not know that they're BSing, but then you would have somebody that is so clueless and has they don't even possess the intellectual capacity to BS their way through something, and that's where the Democrats are with their leadership today. It's already, and it is well earned, making the rounds, the side-by-side comparison between Ocasio-Cortez and the 2007 Miss Teen South Carolina and the infamous answer to the question that she was given during the 2007 Miss Teen USA pageant. Do you remember this gal?
Yes, I do.
And I'm going to play it. Well, I'll play Ocasio-Cortez first again, and then I will play the 2007 train wreck of an answer from a teenager in a beauty pageant. And I am being completely 100% legitimate when I say the comparison between the two, I think, is mean and unfair to the 2007 Miss Teen USA pageant person. So this, again, Ocasio-Cortez, there as an expert when it comes to national security, ask about Taiwan and China.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States.
Okay, and then Miss Teen USA 2007.
Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere such as, and I believe that they should. Our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for it.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
And, Ocasio-Cortez, I'm sure, got applause at the end of her.
I'm sure she did.
Well, it is so sad how far we have fallen that what back in 2007 was widely mocked and reflected on by so many Americans across the political spectrum as a sad sign of education in this country, when you've got some teenager that gives an answer like that regarding an issue of education and so forth. But that in fact, the latest polling shows Ocasio-Cortez is third in the race to be the nominee for Democrats for president of the United States, and that this is the same level of intellectual presentation from Ocasio-Cortez today on the world stage. During the break, you were saying you hope that the world, all these other people, they see Ocasio-Cortez, and you hope that what?
I just hope that they don't think that we're all this stupid.
And this is the thing about it, because I've thought that as well. And I'm like, they see Ocasio-Cortez.
Like she was handpicked to go there.
I think either which way, let's say that they do. They're like, oh, okay, I mean, we know not all American women are this stupid. I mean, I think Tulsi Gabbard is a perfect example of someone who, by the way, was a lifelong Democrat, part of the Trump administration now. I mean, she's just one of many women that demonstrate the intellectual capacity to stand up against the best of them, which is, of course, the opposite of what Democrats have to offer up. But so even if you do recognize that as a world leader and the stark difference in quality of intellect between American leaders that are female on the right versus the left, there's still the recognition, though, that there's enough Americans to elect those females to office. And that, while, yes, Trump trounced Kamala Harris, she is someone that they recognize still got, just not quite, but not too far off of half the American people to support her. Now, obviously, there are men that are just idiotic as well. Swalwell is one of them. The Democrat congressman, is it Jefferson? I always forget his name, who thought an island would tip over because we had too many military assets on one side of it. But when you are a political party that really highlights, you champion women, and you play the hand constantly that, well, if women were in charge, we wouldn't have all these problems, but that's what you send over, then, you really do put it front and center on stage. Let me tell you, because you think, well, the left should be embarrassed when someone like Ocasio-Cortez, that is a presidential contender on their side, humiliates herself and displays her full ignorance at the Munich conference. And the way the left, what they do is they tell themselves, well, she'll learn. I mean, there's always a learning curve. This is a conference in which the learned are supposed, like the people who are still learning are not supposed to be the ones up there on stage. One would like to think that the American people also looks at the presidency that way. It isn't this random picking of someone and then just fingers crossed they'll figure it out. Oh, they'll figure all this stuff out. We're supposed to be picking people based off of their demonstration that they are already experts in these areas. Hey, everyone, hour number 2. My name is Nick Reed. If you've not gotten yourself signed up for Lunch Bunch with Godfather's Pizza, you can do so right now at KSGF.com. And if you are chosen, we'll reach out to you via text, is always our first attempt, based off the number that you provide when you do register. And if you're chosen, we'll contact you, get you set up for a Wednesday with you and up to 5 people of your choosing to join us for all you can eat pizza buffet and salad bar at Godfather's, the good folks over there. Specifically, we do our lunch bunch at the Springfield location, though it's the same owner for Nixa, Ozark, and Battlefield. So any of those that you decide to go to or have any sort of event at, as a number of them do have separate rooms, you're with good people, and they deliver too. A lot of folks don't necessarily think of that. So whether it's a buffet or delivery, Godfather's Pizza is awesome. And you can sign up to win free pizza with us. Go to ksgf.com, get yourself signed up for that. I did something over the weekend that I've never done before, and that was go to a cheer competition.
Oh, how was it?
It was, well, first off, let me explain why I went.
Yeah, actually, you probably should. I'm just doing this for
Yeah,
fun.
I just
saw a
thought,
flyer for it.
Yeah.
Freak.
Yeah. Well, I just saw a bunch of, glittery outfits, and I thought, I'll follow that. One of my nieces is in that world, and she has been, I think, for a couple years. She's younger, and so there was in Branson. It was the Battle in the Ozarks, the Royal event. It was a big national, gathering, and so it actually was relatively small compared to a lot of the other ones that they've gone to. So my brother-in-law was like, "Oh yeah, you should see in Orlando and Dallas." This is a whole just crazy world to me, and so they live on the other side of the state. And actually, my wife told me a couple weeks ago. She goes, "Yeah, I talked to your sister, and Elliot is going to be doing a competition in Branson on the 14th." And so I was like, "Oh, well, cool. I'll go down there," because I knew that everybody else in the family would be working except me in all likelihood, and I'd be just looking for something to do, and plus a chance to see family. And it was at the convention center there in Branson, which is just on the other side of the railroad tracks from the landing at the Hilton. And it was, and I don't mean this at all. I think I said this to a couple people, and I thought, well, I hope it didn't come off wrong, because it's not how I meant it. I said it was exactly the way that I have seen those events portrayed in movies. Like
flashing lights, glitter.
Yes, flashing lights, glitter. Girls in glittery outfits and lots of makeup, and the hair all done up, and just the over the top music, and the sort of announcer guy that announces them in, and just like everything so hilariously over the top. And I don't mean hilarious in a negative way, which I know if I heard it, I think it's come off that way. But I was kind of even laughing during some of it, because it was just so much like it's portrayed in movies. It really cracked me up, but it was a neat event. And it's very easy for a lot of those things to look at them and sort of roll your eyes. But in a day and an age, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here, when so many young people isolate themselves and they aren't even able to have normal conversations with actual other people, including individuals their own age, because their faces are sunk into phones, and they certainly have no training ground on how to interact with other humans and how to have conflicts and resolutions with other people. And then I see these young girls, and I don't know what the minimum age is, but I'd say probably 8 or 10, and then ranged up to look like high school, that have clearly worked together hours and hours and hours. And that when you're talking about some of the stuff that they do, there's got to be conflict and resolution and working through that, and just natural leadership developing. I thought that in and of itself, I just like to see that anytime humans, particularly younger humans, in a day and an age where we just strip away from them the opportunities to grow emotionally and intellectually in environments that you're dealing with lots of other people that oftentimes bring conflict and need for resolution. Any venue that does that, I think, is a positive thing. And so, just that I probably observing all of this took away something that most people don't, and it's that's what I'm thinking about as I'm watching all of this. But the Cobalt Shear, I mean, they just tore it up. They did a really great job, so that was added bonus as well. And I got to see family, and so that was really nice. But as I'm standing there, whenever there's a VIP area, and so whenever you've got your kids' crew getting ready to come up, then you are sort of, you go into the little VIP area, and then you're allowed to go right up to where you're standing at the stage. The stage is probably 5 foot high, 4.5, 5 foot high. And I just thought, with the flashing lights and all and I was like, I just can't believe that I'm standing here in the middle of all this, and I'm actually enjoying it. So it was a neat time. A point being, wanted to congratulate the team Cobalt, and
did they win?
Yeah, they
nice.
won. They won, like, I think based off my sister's posting, it seemed like they may have swept everything. But if not, I'm sure they came very close to it. And I know I'm obviously a bit biased because of my incredible niece being part of it and instrumental in it. I thought, boy, I think that if I were objective, I would still choose them to win, in my clear, deep background of judging such cheer competitions. So the other funny thing was, when I got home, the girl child wasn't able to go, and I told her, I said, it was just like the movies, when you see these things in the movies. And she laughed and said, "Oh yeah, because you watch a lot of cheer movies." And I was like, "I've seen them." And then I said to her, what was it?
Bring It On.
Yeah, Bring It On. I said, "I've seen Bring It On," and she laughed like I was making up. I said, "No, seriously." I said, "If you haven't seen that, you should watch it. It's a pretty good movie. Elisha Dushku, Kirsten Dunst." I said, "That's a solid movie. Bring It On." I don't think she believed me, though. All right, Gretchen Whitmer coming up here in just a couple of moments. She, another Democrat that was put on display in Munich as an expert when it comes to security issues. And so, no brainer, right? Ukraine, Russia. She's asked her thoughts on it. And much like Ocasio-Cortez, demonstrating she has no clue what it is that is actually going on in the world, let alone have any sort of formulated thoughts on it. That coming up. Now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy dense fog before 7 a.m., otherwise sunny with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
I want a great homeloan.com for any home loan needs that you may have, refinancing, reverse mortgages. They're not all the same. I know it is easy to think that whatever place you go to, if you do it online, you go to your bank that you've always banked at, or you go to folks like the Carrickers and their team, that they plug in your information and your income, and then whatever your credit score is and debt to income ratio, then that is one size fits all. That makes the determination. But that isn't always the case, particularly when you've got a dedicated team like the Carrickers. And one of the common themes folks come out with, and I can attest to this, is that you may be told with one particular outlet, oh, this is what is available. And then the Carrickers will come to you with like 4 different options. Some of which just depends on if you're a veteran, you're not a veteran. Sometimes you don't have to put anything down whatsoever or have any closing cost. Sometimes the loan and the interest rates depend on where it is that you're buying the home, which town. You've got the USDA factor in there. So there is just a lot that really does make a tremendous difference, and the difference between those that just sort of plug your information in, whatever spits out, that's what they offer you, take it or leave it. Because the way they look at it is that saves them time, and while they may not give you an offering that someone else does, and then they lose your business, but they do it at it's a volume thing. So they just bam, 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 spit them out. And that is the approach they take, as opposed to the Carrickers and their team, where it's really getting an in-depth look at things and trying to find absolutely every possible scenario for you from which you get to choose. All those home loan needs, I want a great homeloan.com, because you do. Gretchen Whitmer, she was another Democrat over the weekend in Munich. And this is a big security conference, and the world sends what are supposed to be a representation of their foremost experts on issues. Gretchen Whitmer, and for Democrat, listen, Gavin Newsom's over there, Ocasio-Cortez is over there, Democrats have Gretchen Whitmer over there as well. These are all individuals that want to be on the world stage to demonstrate that they are presidential. And this is all perfect, because we played the Ocasio-Cortez audio earlier, and of course she demonstrated she had no clue what she was talking about. It was an embarrassing moment. But for them, it isn't the substance. That's not what makes one presidential. It's just the fact that they're there. They're at the party with the cool kids, and so then that, by default, makes them cool, because they're there. It's like when you're in high school and you got the cool kids that are throwing a weekend party. You just want to be there, because just the fact that you're there, some of that coolness may rub off on you. And for Democrats, because nothing is merit-based any longer, it's all just little check marks of whatever category that you fit into. And the category of leadership for them, the symbolism and the visuals of being there at an event like Munich, it doesn't matter whether you have any clue what's even being discussed. You're just there. That's what matters. Gretchen Whitmer at the 62nd Munich Security Conference, and she was asked a question, her thoughts, her analysis, when it came to Ukraine.
On Ukraine, what does victory look like?
Ambassador. No, please, I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, it is. The two that I am on the panel with are much more steeped in foreign policy than a governor is. But I do think that Ukraine's independence, keeping their land mass, and having the support of all the allies, I think is the goal from my vantage point. Go ahead, Ambassador. Do a better job.
Yeah, not hard. Not difficult. I'm a governor, so these security issues just really aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse.
Why are you there?
Yes, this
Why are
is
you there?
a security conference. This is the entire reason for the event. What I just like curling my hair. I don't really know. I'm just a girl. I don't know about these things. It is, oh gosh, It's just these people are so bad. It's so scary. And these people legitimately believe they should be in charge of this stuff. Is it any wonder when you look at the mindset, the approach, and a lot of this is it's narcissism. They don't think they need to know these issues. They just think that they are naturally brilliant. And so if they get into the White House and they are then in a position to have to make decisions, they believe, oh, well, I'll just know instinctually. Well, why would you instinctually know the brilliant path forward once you're in the White House if you don't know it now? What do you think is going to happen magically? See, this is one of the dangers of narcissism. You get these people who just believe that, well, I'll figure it out when I get there because I'm really smart, but they're not. And then they don't figure it out. And this is how you end up with complete foreign policy disasters under the Biden administration versus somebody like Donald Trump. While Joe Biden is turning the country of Afghanistan over to the Taliban, while Joe Biden is presiding over the complete embarrassment of Putin resuming the invasion into Ukraine, which began under the Obama administration and then halted during the Trump administration, and largely because 80% of the people that were part of the State Department and the foreign policy world of Joe Biden were also the Barack Obama world. So it makes sense that all the bad players in the world would behave in the same manner. But then you get Donald Trump in there, and I mean, the guy, while he's asleep, is crafting these peace deals between countries that have fought for decades. You've got the Abraham Accords. You have the releasing of all of the hostages that were taken by the terrorists. You've got this Gaza deal that is continuing to develop and this plan put into place that has actual meaningful steps. You've got the complete denuclearization of Iran, which was nuclearized under the Obama administration, masquerading as denuclearizing it. I mean, it's just, you cannot have a greater difference when it comes to actual results from the Obama, Biden administrations and the Trump administration. When you just look at the results. And you hear people like Ocasio-Cortez. You hear people like Gretchen Whitmer. You hear people even, Hillary Clinton, who is more intelligent than these individuals. I mean, if you had to tier them in terms of intelligence, you'd have Hillary Clinton. I'm just talking about these particular Democrat gals. Hillary'd probably be, and then Gretchen under her, and then Ocasio-Cortez clearly at the bottom. And the fact that there are people in America today that want them to be in charge of these world affairs? How insane do you have to be? What mental issue does one have? And the fact that the people who put on these conferences entertain the idea that these people on the left in particular from the United States, the Gretchen Whitmers and the Ocasio-Cortezes, deserve a place on a platform to be heard by the rest of the world. These are not serious people. And what is so frightening is that it's clear, it's evident. The results are in. In a world that is led by common sense and intellectualism and people who just want things better as opposed to wanting their side to win above all, in a world like that, once the results come in, it'd be settled. Okay. And the people who were on the opposing approach would say, oh, hey, gosh, we were wrong. That worked, so now we're going to sign on with that. Maybe we'll figure out ways to make it even better. Nope, not what happens. Not what happens. I'm telling you, we are in a unique position because the rest of the world still does look, if they aren't looking to us, they do look at us. But there's no other country that puts forth people that demonstrate such a level of stupidity to such the degree that we do. Even if you take the gender component out of it and this attempt apparently to use Democrats to make women look completely stupid and incapable of leadership, you take that part out of it, I think the only other person that has been put on the world stage as an expert that vies for the gold medal of ignorance and stupidity with the Ocasio-Cortezes and the Gretchen Whitmers of the world was, that ding-dong teenager that the world said we needed to listen to as an expert when it comes to climate change. You think about it. Do you see anybody else in the world? And I'm not talking about people with different perspectives, but people that can't even stumble through, faking it. And then, of course, if they tune in, like, all right, well, let's see, where is it that Americans, in terms of the, you want to go back to the gender component here, the female perspective, well, gosh, the United States, they have this show over there, and it's a panel, it's described as a news information program, and it has 5-6 different women on it that are daily there to provide their insight on world events, and it's The View. That's what we put up? That's what our major media outlets say to the world. These are the best and brightest in terms of the female minds we have in this country. I mean, it is insane. Yes, we're not supposed to listen to the Tulsi Gabbards of the world. We're not, and they mock people like Kristi Noem, diminishing her as a female by calling her Border Czar Barbie or whatever misogynistic name of the hour is. And while I'm not here to claim that she's necessarily the greatest example of female leadership, I mean, she certainly puts to shame the Ocasio-Cortez and the Gretchen Whitmers of the world. All right, we've got a lot of other stuff to cover here. Think this would be a good time to do just that. Actually, we're going to get a quick break in. The Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447 KSGF. Question on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Who decides which people from the U.S. would be attending the security conference? I suppose this is obvious to say, well, the people who run it. So the question is, well, who runs it? And honestly, I don't know how those people are chosen, but they present it as they invite people who are, either in official positions or have expertise in global security and fields related as such. And so essentially the people who put it on. Now, that being said, there's a lot of lobbying, obviously. These people, Ocasio-Cortez did not get invited in a vacuum. It wasn't believed, well, we clearly need her. Let's hope she's available. There were outside efforts, probably, the George Soros type billionaires that support the Democrat Party that have that sort of influence. That they then make sure that those invitations occur. So, it's like a lot of these different events. But, because if it were just truly, genuinely a natural, the best amongst us is Gretchen Whitmer and Ocasio-Cortez, God help the world.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Wednesday, sunny with a high near 73.
Bill Maher was doing an opening monologue, and some of it was centered around the rollback of these regulations that just add a tremendous amount of money to vehicles, and they're done in the name of the environment. And the benefit the left has in terms of pushing their agenda forward is the ignorance of people, and that their cause is noble, right? So when there are reports about rolling back these regulations based off of scientific findings regarding global warming, the default for a massive portion of the population is just to assume that it's bad, that these all regulations in the name of the environment clearly are good. all regulations that are done in the name of the environment are actually helping save the environment. And so any rollback is just a bad thing. And it's a mindset that escapes most of us, because most of us recognize that government really isn't that great at making decisions. And you throw in that the fact that you're talking about politicians, a significant number of which only do what it is that they, looks popular, or what certain lobbyist organizations are pushing them to do. There's tremendous amount of money that comes from these political environmentalists that are out of sync with science more often than not. And so the fact that people put 100% trust into government in that capacity is a bizarre idea to a lot of thinking people. But that is how it works. One of the alterations that was made that a lot of people are going to be pleased with is that automatic shutting off of the engine function. Do you have that in your car?
No, thank goodness.
Yeah. So we have it in one vehicle in our household. There is the option to turn it off, but not permanently.
Yeah, so every single time you start the car, you have to toggle that off.
Which generally you don't remember to do it until it actually does turn off. And of course, depending on your driving habits, it's going to change, in terms of the level of aggravation from person to person. If you're somebody that does a lot of in-town driving, it becomes aggravating for a lot of people. I don't know, maybe some people don't mind it. But it's generally not one of those options that people think, thank goodness that's there. It's just so aggravating and annoying. And so that's one of the, and of course that was done, somehow it's going to save the planet. Now, of course, there's no evidence that any of that makes any difference whatsoever. But of course, this again is the benefit people have on the left when they push these sort of big government control you agendas, is they say, oh, it's for something good. So if you're for good things, like, making sure everyone doesn't die from pollution, then you'll support this. But if you are an idiot who's anti-science, you'll be against it. That's all they need to know. Now, Bill Maher was actually having this discussion about Bill Maher the other day. Is this interesting combination of somebody that does have a grounding in common sense, but he is drowning in a world of liberalism. And oftentimes those two things come into conflict. And yesterday, or I guess it would have been Friday that this aired, would be one of those days. And here he's doing, this is during his monologue, which he doesn't write these things. I'm sure other people do, but he clearly goes over them because I imagine he doesn't want to look like somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about, given that that's one of his biggest gripes about people on his side of the political aisle, is that they, so often don't have any clue what they're talking about, and they're not willing to engage with people who do. Yet here he was mocking the Trump administration regarding the alterations, specifically talking about the issue of, carbon monoxide, but you'll see the confusion here.
Doug Burnham, he's the Interior Secretary. Listen to this, the way they all line up behind this nonsense. He said, CO2, carbon, was never a pollutant. He said, when we breathe, we emit CO2. Okay, Doug, you know what? Let's try this little experiment. Tonight, when you get home, go in the garage, close the door, turn the car on, and let's see if carbon is a pollutant.
All right, now, many of you, even those that aren't scientists, probably right off the bat understand the problem here, and that is what I'm assuming Bill Maher and the audience is applauding for, is the concept of carbon monoxide, which is not a natural man-made occurrence, but carbon dioxide is, and that, of course, is what Doug Burnham was talking about, because the left has, for a very long time, tried to convince the American people that the naturally occurring carbon dioxide that you and I breathe out and that plants breathe in, Naturally, our oxygen naturally converts as we breathe out carbon dioxide, and then the plants do the opposite. And that is what Doug Burgum was talking about in the context of this is a naturally occurring thing. What Bill Maher is thinking of is carbon monoxide. And as you can see, the audience is laughing right along because, they think that this is perfect liberalism. They're completely ignorant, 100%, when it comes to the issue that they're talking about. But they're mocking somebody on the other end of the political spectrum who actually does know what they're talking about scientifically, but they're mocking him as if he doesn't. This is the MO of the Democrat Party today. This is the MO of the left. You don't know a thing about the subject matter, and then you mock people who do as if they don't know, and then all of the people within your little bubble applaud. This reminds me of the first Trump campaign. I think it was the first. And there was the issue of illegal immigration. And during, I believe it was one of the debates, and Trump was talking about, among the other issues and problems, coyotes, the human smugglers. And he referenced once, or perhaps more than once, the problem with coyotes smuggling humans into the United States, and just the dangers of that for those human beings. The left went wild mocking him because they thought that he was talking about actual coyotes because Donald Trump's such an idiot. He thinks that coyotes are in the middle of the night out in the desert grabbing illegals and then dragging them across the border because they're totally ignorant as to what coyotes were in the context of illegal immigration. They did not know that's what the human smugglers were called. And what you had is similar to what you witnessed there with Bill Maher mocking the Trump administration and Interior Secretary Burgum because of his lack of knowledge about carbon when he is demonstrating. He doesn't know the difference, apparently, between carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. The left, who champions themselves as experts when it comes to all things dealing with immigration and illegal immigration, and then whenever one of the most pressing issues in the context of illegal immigration, particularly back in 2015, 2016, were the human smugglers, the human traffickers known as coyotes. And when Trump talked about that, the left was so ignorant as to the subject matter, they were mocking him as if he didn't know what he was talking about. Now, aside from that, Bill Maher is an interesting individual to me because, as I noted, he does to me demonstrate. If you listen to him, and I not only his show, I don't watch it religiously, I catch it every so often, and even his podcast that he does, which is called Club Random, generally with celebrities, but they do oftentimes talk about, current events and things politically, that he is grounded in common sense. But that only gets you so far if you live in the world of liberalism, because common sense is dependent on you having access to actual facts, and then the ability to take those facts and base opinions off of them that are rooted in a common sense, a commonality of sense. And when you are isolated to this world of liberalism, then you don't always have the facts. And that is where somebody like Bill Maher gets these conflicts. I firmly believe that Bill Maher would, and he still considers himself to be, quote, liberal in terms of the modern terminology of it. If Bill Maher were someone that had provided himself the access to all of the relevant factual information, like the environment, for example, then he would find himself on the other side. I think the environment would be one of those. The problem is he is ignorant when it comes to much of this information because of the liberal world that he lives in. And the fact that he doesn't know the difference between carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide demonstrates that. It's going to be interesting to see if he addresses that, because he is the type that if he does make some sort of mistake like that, he's noted it, he's pointed it out. Will it first off get back to him, and will he fully acknowledge the ignorance, or will he try and sort of dismiss it and rationalize it? I don't know. That's going to be, to me, a little interesting to see. But that was just on full display, the elitism of the left that are that are demonstrating that they're clueless on a concept while mocking people who actually are experts in that area. Now, I do want to note regarding the previous segment that, like any element, oxygen, water, CO2, carbon dioxide can be deadly if it is, I don't want to use the word used, but in certain circumstances, like I said, just water is one of those things that you have to exist, but you can also drown in it. But what when with Bill Maher quipping his challenge to Doug Berman to go out in his car in a closed garage and leave it running, is the demonstration here that there was confusion between the difference of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. There's a story, and these stories come out every so often, that are rankings by these different outfits like Wallet Hub. And their latest is study ranks Missouri and Arkansas among least educated states. And they come up with their own matrix and so forth. Regardless of the accuracy of their particular studies, we oftentimes think of it in terms of real-time education. So, there may be a discussion about level of education in a state in which they are gauging the overall population, but we think by default they're talking about the current school systems. And it notes that Missouri and Arkansas among the least educated states. It found also that Mississippi ranked at the bottom, with a couple of other states. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity to highlight briefly something that most people aren't aware of, and that is that aside from where the overall for all human beings education rate, according to an outfit like Hub Wallet, is for people in Mississippi, that is a state that, because of very deliberate, meaningful changes they made to go back to teaching the way students were taught once upon a time, has done a complete turnaround, particularly with reading, and math is following up closely, to where they have gone from the bottom to one of the top states, beating out liberal havens like California. There's a piece in the New York Times on this. Mississippi's reading triumph is no miracle. It's the future of education. And it references the fact that it's a well-known phrase utilized, and that is the Mississippi miracle, because of these real meaningful changes that got away from all this crap that seemingly were efforts by people who thought they were really smart to make learning overly clever. You know, you hear with the smart math and the this and the that and all these, different outfits that pulled away from doing things the way in which they were done when we were doing better in terms of education. And they note in the piece that will get posted under Nick's Must Read headlines that Mississippi went from 49th in fourth grade reading results on the National Assessment of Education Progress about a decade ago to 9th in 2024. Its low-income children ranked first in the nation. Its black kids number 3 in the nation, and Mississippi's Hispanic kids number 1 in the entire country in terms of reading. Overall, when adjusted for socioeconomics and demographics, Mississippi has the best fourth grade results in the United States of America. The derisive cliche used to be, thank God for Mississippi, since it could be trusted to save other states from coming in 50th in various metrics. Now, the phrase can be used with sincerity and admiration, since the state recognized and did something about its literacy crisis. In 2011, only 1 in 5 fourth graders in Mississippi was proficient in reading. In 2013, the state passed a reform requiring teachers to actually understand the science of reading, basically phonics, deploy literacy coaches to schools, identify students struggling to read early, and hold them back in third grade if they were not ready to advance, as opposed to just passing them along. Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana have now done much of the same, have also made gains. The original source of all this was a 2002 reading law in Florida that boosted student achievement there. In a piece headline, Illiteracy is a Policy Choice, at the argument on Substack, Kelsey Piper makes the case that it would be irresponsible and wrong to ignore lessons of Mississippi and the southern states, noting that Mississippi outperforms her native California, even though California is richer and spends substantially more money on education per pupil. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. You got a home to buy, you got a home to sell. It's in a nice, cozy little white picket fence neighborhood or out on thousands of acres. You are covered. And she knows all of the folks that you might end up needing to hire on to maybe do some sort of upgrades. This is an area in which she can help you out because she has all the expertise. She knows who the players are. She knows who's good, who won't take advantage of you. This is what she does on a daily basis. And consistently, people who utilize her services tout that as one of the huge benefits. Also, just really being on top of everything and being a total, complete advocate for you. She is so much more than just showing you some home or showing people your home. And I recommend that while I'm going to be straight up and truthful with you. You get online and see what other people say about her, whether it is the Zillow reviews or Google reviews or wherever you can find reviews. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, I recommend her, and clearly so many other people who have utilized her services and recommended her to others do the same. Buying, selling, or just any questions you might have about doing either. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Springfield's gaining another unionized Starbucks, according to a press release. This brings the count in Missouri to 18. On Wednesday, February 11th, baristas at the 2616 South Glenstone Starbucks location voted 20-1 to join Starbucks Workers United. This is the third Springfield Starbucks to join Starbucks Workers United. The first store, 631 South Glenstone, unionized in August of 2022. The second on Battlefield joined in November of 2024. Do you think that, I don't know, maybe the employees, the baristas at the non-unionized Starbucks just have these horrifically dangerous, awful working conditions in which their lives are constantly on the line and they get paid slave wages. But then you go to one of the unionized and it's just there's nothing better you could dream of than working at one of those three particular Starbucks. Where is that? 2616 South Glenstone. Is that the one across from the mall?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm not a Starbucks guy, but
Yeah,
I'm not
either.
really a big coffee guy anyway. But just because of the lines, I don't think I would go to Starbucks. I went to Starbucks, I think, once or twice for an iced tea, but they didn't have lemon, and this was like 15 years ago. And so I just, I can't speak to it one way or another. I just know the reputation they have. When you listen to these people who want to unionize, it becomes so clear that you are dealing with, generally speaking, entitled, spoiled individuals who have no true concept as to what real challenges in life are. You've got Faith Melton in a news release saying Starbucks as a whole can, all caps, do better, and we're holding them accountable. We are demanding respect, proper treatment, livable wages, proper scheduling, and healthier work environments and conditions. We're so excited that our moment has come and any dream can become a reality. So apparently working for Starbucks, when you look at what they're demanding, suggest that if you work at Starbucks, there is no respect for employees. They are treated improperly. They don't make enough money to just live at all. So I guess these are unhoused individuals. The scheduling isn't done properly, and I think we all know what that means. Sometimes they have to work when they don't want to. And the environment is unhealthy in terms of working, and the conditions are unhealthy as well. Now, I suspect that this may not be necessarily in line with reality. When you look back at the history of why there was a push to unionize workers in this country. When you look at working conditions in which children, even children, in mines, in factories, you had the sort of conditions where on any given day, not because of human error, but just because of the nature of the job or the equipment that was being used, people would die. And it wouldn't be, today you hear if somebody dies in a workplace, oftentimes it is because of, despite the massive amounts of rules and training and safety mechanisms that are put in place, you will have an operator error. You will have someone that wasn't following protocol. That's generally what we're talking about in this country whenever you have some sort of accident that occurs. That results in a person being physically harmed or perhaps dying. And that may not always be the case, but once upon a time, that's just how it was. Working a job in the mines, working a job in the factories, these were, whether it was going to kill you one way or another. If you manage to not die on any given day or be maimed so drastically that you just had maybe days to live, or your life became one that was simply about managing the pain until you die, then you would eventually die because of the long-term effects of breathing in the coal dust or whatever it was in the factory that would have its long-term effects. And you look at the reasons that people then believed that it was necessary to come together collectively in order to create working conditions that would make it less likely they would just die or be maimed during work. And you listen to these people whine today, working in a nice climate-controlled, pampered environment surrounded by $10 coffees, and you listen to them and you would think that they were working in the mines as 12-year-olds 150 years ago. And the other thing about it is, back during the period of time in which there really was a need to improve working conditions for people because of their lives being on the line, they didn't have other opportunities. It wasn't a situation where, oh, well, I'll just go work at a restaurant. Oh, I'll go work at this hotel. I'll go work at this coffee shop as a barista. They didn't have any options. It was that or starve to death. You didn't have all of these programs that existed where you could get, quote, what you deserved in terms of a handout. There wasn't the ability to drop out of one job one day and then automatically be hired in another. When these people portray themselves as working in these, working conditions that they make it sound like it's some sort of factory in the late 1800s, go somewhere else. Particularly if you're talking about working in a coffee shop, and I'm not trying to demean the job in terms of skills, particularly if you're talking about management, because I don't care what the job is. If you have to manage people, you're managing people. That's not an easy thing. But there are tons of places that accept your skill set that you could work on, that are hiring every single day. Go somewhere else. You have that option. But this whining presentation of these violations of human rights, and we're just trapped and have absolutely no other option, so we're going to, just demand that we get the respect we deserve. Guess what? Sometimes you don't deserve it. Well, anyway, those of you who want to make sure that you are definitely, when you purchase your Starbucks product, whatever it may be, and you want to not contribute to a Starbucks that treats its employees poorly, doesn't pay them living wages, doesn't schedule them properly, doesn't give them respect, and creates an unhealthy work environment. You don't want to contribute to that, but the opposite, you now have 3 Starbucks from which to choose. In Springfield. Nationwide, though, how many did it say? There's quite a few. 570. Making progress.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 71. And for Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
KSGF.com. Get registered to win Lunch Bunch with Sarah and me at Godfather's Pizza in Springfield. And you can also text to win, not for that, but for the upcoming Trace Adkins concert. This is going to be June 13th at Black Oak Amphitheater, which is in Lampe. If you would like your chance to win a pair of tickets, you can simply text the word TRACE to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447-KSGF, and that will be your chance to win a pair of tickets for that. We will have a different word for a different pair every day of the week. Today's word is TRACE. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. I typically mention their residential work because that's how I utilize the Pyramid team, but they also offer commercial roofing services as well. Stephen wrote, our church hired Pyramid to do a relatively complicated skylight and flashing repair, and they did a wonderful job. The project manager was respectful and highly qualified. He was able to understand and direct his technicians to do exactly what we wanted done. They, in turn, were thoughtful and offered excellent solutions. Likewise, contact with the office always resulted in timely responses and fair dealings. I have dealt with many roofing companies in my career as an architect and construction manager, and I am pleased to say Pyramid's execution from sales to installation was one of the highest of caliber. So if you are looking for a commercial roofing company, the Pyramid team, they have got you covered on that front too. You can reach out to Josh today, schedule that free roof inspection, and they will get you all squared away. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Pyramid Roofing Company text line messages. Text regarding the third Starbucks in Springfield unionizing so that they can finally be treated with respect and have livable wages and not work in unhealthy work environments, which apparently is something that you have at Starbucks, which is really weird because it's my understanding that Starbucks is, in terms of a workplace, very progressive and liberal. This is what we've always been told, right? That they embody the values of the left, which is everything that is about livable wages and respect in the workplace. So why would the left have to unionize as employees while working for leftists? It seems as if it should be an example of no need to unionize by forcing the hands of those in charge, given that, from what we've all been told, and I think it's fair to say culturally, if you were to ask people if you believe Starbucks has any sort of political leaning or political persuasion, which way would it go? I think they've demonstrated that they certainly are to the left. So why is it that they have to unionize? It seems like a valuable question. Some of your messages coming in, Jimmy Hoffa would be so into their struggle. Well, I mean, honestly, if you were to take people, even well before Jimmy Hoffa, but during the days, back during the Great Depression era in which people had no choice, like this is where you work or you starve to death. And the place that you work was so just dangerous that people die any given week, leaving a family without any father and without any income. And were to say to that, like you have a time machine and you bring them into the future to a Starbucks and you're like, hey, these people really feel that they're struggling on the same level you did. Here's a day in the life of one of these individuals. They probably like strangle the person to death and leave them there in the parking lot. Another saying you should research how much the union dues are and what the actual wage increase is. That's a good point. Another noting, I just can't do Starbucks because they insist upon themselves, and boy, don't they. Of course, that's personal opinion. At least one other person shares. Between places like Seven Brew and the drain on the business caused by the union, I expect Starbucks will struggle to stay afloat at the unionized location. Well, again, I don't really know how much of a difference in terms of pay that these other locations are going to see. And I imagine to a large degree, and there may be a difference between franchise versus corporate owned, if that relationship exists. If it's a pool of resources as opposed to every individual store being isolated in terms of their revenue and their financial responsibilities. But you mentioned Seven Brew, and I know that there are a lot of, quote, coffee places that are in the area. Some of them are franchise, some of them are corporate, some are locally owned franchises of corporations. Some of them are straight up 100% local, one and only. And then you have sort of a interesting situation with Classic Rock, which is actually international, but it is based in Springfield. So people consider it local, even though it has a reach that goes across the globe. And while every individual is different, and I'm just going to draw a comparison here based off what I know. And while I noted I don't go to Starbucks, sometimes, the girl child will have gift cards for there, and there have been numerous occasions in which driving through, we've never had like a horrible experience, been treated poorly or anything. But Seven Brew has iced tea that I like, and I received a gift card Christmas for Seven Brew. It's very convenient in Republic. And because I'm a tea drinker, not so much a coffee drinker, I have had numerous experiences going through 7 Brew. And you want to experience just a real cultural difference in terms of employees. And again, I don't want to make it sound as if going to Starbucks is always some sort of horrible experience. I've not had a bad experience, but you just, for me, in my personal experience, going through a Starbucks, and you get the sense they're just doing oftentimes their job, and, just going through the motions, doing it fine, I suppose. But then when you have the complaining and the griping and the protesting out in front, oftentimes because, they're just treated so poorly and how horrible it is to work there and they need livable wages. And then you drive through and you experience the interaction with young employees at a place like 7 Brew, and it is a world of difference. You feel like instead of these are individuals that are entitled and spoiled, they are appreciative of their job, they're appreciative of you, they just have this sort of attitude of they're glad to be there, they're enjoying what they're doing, even when it's 12 degrees and the wind is blowing outside. And that isn't to say that, of course, my experience is primarily at one location, and it isn't to say that you don't at times have employees that maybe don't live up to those standards. But when you just talk about the overall culture, the overall feel, for me, one is of a lack of appreciation and this just spoiled, entitled cultural mentality of employees, while the other is one of kindness and happy to be here and glad to have a job I enjoy, and we love working with one another. It's sort of this family feel to it, everybody getting along, and that just, I think, really says something. Coming up, Kamala Harris polling average leads the 2028 Democrat primary polls. This is just, what a train wreck we are as a country. When one of the two political parties continues to seem insistent on picking people who are proven losers to be their leaders. Former Vice President Kamala Harris polling average leading among other potential Democrat candidates running for president in 2028, according to Race to the White House. Harris at 27.5% national polling average. Gavin Newsom, 22.7%. Ocasio-Cortez, 9%. Pete Buttigieg, 8.7%. Josh Shapiro, only 4.9%. Of course, being Jewish is a massive detriment to him within the Democrat Party. Governor Pritzker of Illinois, 3.4%. In terms of, let's just be honest about what this is. The top three choices right now, that in terms of Democrats and favorability, are the most well-known losers in the Democrat Party. I mean, you're going to have a lot of other losers in there, but in terms of high profile, the biggest one being Kamala Harris. I don't know how much more she can lose. Let's not forget, this is a woman who dropped out before the Iowa caucus even took place because she was performing so badly amongst Democrats when she was first running for president. When she was up against Hitler. How bad do you have to be to lose to Hitler? In every swing state. I mean, deep red states like Missouri, obviously you'll lose to Hitler there, but Pennsylvania, Ohio, all of these swing states, you have to be pretty bad to lose to Hitler in swing states. Yet Kamala Harris did. With the exception of white liberal women who have proven that they are insane, Kamala Harris lost ground in every single demographic to Hitler. So naturally, given that she has a track record of being the biggest loser, she is the favorite amongst Democrats. Now, second place biggest loser, Gavin Newsom. That's based off of his performance in California. He has economically destroyed that country, or that state, rather. People can argue all they want about whether or not California is actually a great place to live, but people tell the truth with their actions, and there's no state people flee from to the degree that they flee from California. You can, of course, just go down the checklist of areas that Gavin Newsom is responsible as governor, rebuilding after the fire. That has been a complete and utter disaster. The lead up to not being prepared on a state level for the fire. This massive train boondoggle, and I don't know if you've been following that. This is another one of those dream projects that people on the left in particular wrap themselves in, and they promise it's going to cost this much and be done at this time, and then 10 times on both accounts later, it's still not finished. Just the deficit that has been created there. Every point on the measuring stick, Gavin Newsom has failed. So naturally, he's in second place. Ocasio-Cortez, the only reason that she isn't more of a failure is because she hasn't really been in a position to have authority in which her policies would be implemented so that we could see what a failure they are. But she wins third place for biggest failure because of the stuff she says. For all of the options that Democrats have out there on the landscape, the top three are, by their own demonstration, the top three biggest losers that the party has. Now, if you're wondering why that is, and I've explained this before, we're going to get a traffic update here, and then I'll very simply explain why it is that Democrats, as of late, Jasmine Crockett in Texas is another example. I think those primaries are coming, primaries very soon, just maybe the second Tuesday in March even. And according to the polling, Jasmine Crockett is going to win that primary. Now, she is another one that, compared to her opponent, is a complete, hysterical, idiotic moron. Democrats have an option, but they're going to choose the worst of the two. Why is it consistently they're doing that? That coming up, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And for Wednesday, sunny with a high near 73.
Democrats have fallen into this pattern of throwing their support behind Democrats that have demonstrated in terms of results that they are the biggest losers. Failures. Perhaps failure is a better term than loser. The latest polling shows amongst Democrats, and these are rolling averages, Kamala Harris continues to lead. If you are simply to look at the actual results of a person as either an elected official or a candidate, Kamala Harris is certainly the top. I was listing earlier many of her failures, like Borders are, for example, and the fact that she didn't even make it to the Iowa caucus. She did so poorly during the primaries when she was first running. But we shouldn't forget, prior to Democrats overturning the Democrats' election of Joe Biden to run for a second term, there were Democrats openly calling for, in editorials, Biden to drop Kamala Harris from the ticket because she was so bad. Democrats were saying that, arguing that she could be the reason that he would lose. Yet she is consistently the number one choice amongst Democrats. Gavin Newsom follow up second. Now, high-profile Democrats, again, there's nothing about what he has actually done in California that is anything other than a failure. Third place amongst Democrats, Ocasio-Cortez. Someone texted in, can you imagine coming in behind Ocasio-Cortez? How does that make you feel? Well, especially if you're somebody like Josh Shapiro that is relatively successful as a governor compared to other Democrats. But again, he's Jewish, so they can't have that. Why is it that Democrats have fallen into this consistent pattern of picking those that have demonstrated they're such losers? It is because they have become completely reactionary. Democrat voters, or enough of them to control the way that the party is going and the way that the vote goes, no longer vote based off of the results of policies. They vote based off of their hatred for Trump and their hatred for Republicans. So how does that translate to Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom and Ocasio-Cortez being the favorites amongst Democrat voters for president? Well, what three Democrats that are considered to be in the running gets more mockery and verbal hatred than those three individuals? Get more from the Republican Party? There aren't any. The reason that Kamala Harris gets so much support amongst Democrats and it's because she is such a loser, she becomes the target of mockery. She is the one that Republicans will oftentimes point to as an example of Democrat failures. And because Democrat voters don't vote off results, but their hatred for Republicans, and they see Republicans, they don't like Kamala Harris, so we'll show them that's who we're going to support. Gavin Newsom's just another example. What other high-profile Democrat gets criticized as often as Gavin Newsom by Republicans? I mean, other than Kamala Harris, not many. But there, in third place, Ocasio-Cortez. And I can guarantee you, if you were to do a massive sort of data collection and draw a graph, some sort of visual, you would find that there was a distinct connection between the amount of criticism and mockery and ridicule a Democrat gets by Republicans and by Donald Trump and Trump supporters and the amount of support that individual gets from Democrats. The way that at this point you get support for from Democrat voters is to become targets of Republicans, is to become ridiculed, is to be someone that Republicans point to as an example of failed Democrat policies. And that is, unfortunately, not just for the Democrat Party, but for this country. That is their approach. It's not about what makes the country better. It's not about, what makes the country more secure, what leads to better education, what leads to safer streets, it's nothing to do with any of that. Who is hated most by Trump and Trump supporters and Republicans? And that is a demonstration that they really must hate Trump. And so that's who we're for. That's all that matters. That's why you've got that idiot Jasmine Crockett leading in the polls in the primary in Texas. This is why up in, I think it's Maine, we've talked about that Democrat that it was an actual Nazi tattoo, not a tattoo that looked like a Nazi tattoo, but an actual Nazi tattoo that he got while serving overseas, and openly asked questions on, I think it was Reddit, questioning why black people tip so poorly. All of these things that, if you listen to the left, is an example of right-wing extremism, but he's one of theirs. He's up against, this is for a U.S. Senate campaign. It's some east, if it's not Massachusetts, I think it's Maine, but I could be wrong. I think it is Maine, because I think he may be the one that goes up against Susan Collins. But nonetheless, there is a primary there, and it's the current very popular Democrat governor that is going to run or is running in the primary for Senate. Once the Republicans started piling on the Democrat who has Nazi tattoos and asked why black people are such bad tippers, he shot to the top of the polls amongst Democrats. Consistently. Regardless of their racism, regardless of their misogyny, regardless of their failed policies, if somebody running as a Democrat can become the target of Republicans, the response from Democrats is, well, we'll show you. You hate them, that's who we're going to pick. which when you look at it means that not only are Republicans as a party theoretically responsible for sort of nudging voters to vote for the candidates that they want, they now are apparently in charge of doing the same for Democrats. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. It's fun to think about spring, the warmer weather, getting out and about, opening the windows, the longer days, all that good stuff, right? But it's also a good time to start thinking about preventative maintenance so you can have a stress-free spring. And that is where Foreman Mechanical comes in. Now, the Foreman team, they offer an annual preventative maintenance program to keep your unit running smoothly, and it will help you avoid costly repairs in the future. Plus, the Foreman team, they also offer indoor air quality testing, which that is a great service. If you are a person who suffers from allergies, this will help you get to breathing a little bit easier. So if it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. They're great guys. I couldn't recommend them enough. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Now, aside from the polling we're talking about amongst Democrat voters and the continuation of Kamala Harris leading the pack, Gavin Newsom behind, and then Ocasio-Cortez relatively significantly behind, but still in third place. It is being reported by Axios that former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she is going to want to push Gavin Newsom to be the nominee. Sources close to Pelosi telling Axios that the Democratic Party leader has been pushing Newsom for 2028 behind closed doors, given that the two have been working together going back to the days of San Francisco. One noting to Axios, Pelosi is one of the strongest donor networks in Democratic politics. She's been a key validator for Newsom as he emerged on the national stage and became one of President Trump's most visible foes. Once again, it goes back to who is the biggest enemy of Republicans? Who is it that Trump dislikes the most? And that instinct to be drawn towards that person. A former aide to House Speaker even said that Pelosi has been a, quote, Gavin fangirl, noting that she doesn't crush on many people. Gross. How's that for imagery? Those two. The aide added, I will say this, she's hardly ever wrong when she says she sees something that's a real thing. Let me tell you what I am genuinely looking forward to. And that is how Democrats are going to end up with whatever the nominee is, whomever the nominee is. Now, with Republicans, I can tell you exactly how it's going to go. There will be campaigning. There will be endorsements. In all likelihood, it could actually be very uneventful as opposed to some of the previous primary caucus processes. And J.D. Vance right now is really considered to be the no-brainer, with perhaps Marco Rubio on the ticket as well. And of course, you will have others that throw their hat in the ring, obviously, but it'll go from state to state. The voting will happen. Of course, you will have, I'm sure, the party try to influence the voters, but ultimately the process will play out the way that it always does. Democrats have demonstrated they have no interest in that process any longer. aside from, of course, the most recent general election in which they attempted to prevent voters from having Donald Trump as an option on the ballot by throwing him off, which the Supreme Court unanimously said, yeah, you can't do that. To the nomination process in which the voters were told, Joe Biden is your guy. They went to court anytime they could in order to make sure that other candidates were off the ballot. They refused to allow RFK Jr. to have any sort of voice as a Democrat. This is why he ended up leaving and running as an independent and eventually supporting Donald Trump, because Democrats created that entire mess by trying to rig the system. They moved the states around in terms of the order in which the vote was cast so that Joe Biden would not look weak. And then with just weeks before the actual convention, they decided, because of that one debate, looks like we picked a loser, and so they told all of their voters, we're overturning your election. He's out. We're going to tell you the next person, and that's Kamala Harris. Many Democrats, particularly Bernie Sanders supporters, will note that's not the first time that they have rigged the process. The idea that coming up on 2028, suddenly Democrats are going to reverse course and go back to the 90s, which was arguably the last, well, maybe 2003, 2004. Was arguably the last time that Democrats really hands off, didn't try to rig things, didn't work overtime to throw people off ballots, didn't overturn the vote, but actually said, all right, everyone, get out there, campaign, and then whomever our voters decide, that's who's going to be the nominee. We'll have the convention, we'll make it official. That suddenly the Democrats are going to go back to that era. So what I am interested in watching, largely, I'll be honest, just for my own entertainment, is how is it, what are they going to do? How are they going to operate with this upcoming selection process? Are they going to just choose a favorite? Nancy Pelosi is already making it clear. Gavin Newsom is her choice. Are they going to all in a unison voice get behind that and then just push hard for the voters to go that direction? If they don't, what will they do? Will they do what they did to Joe Biden? If things begin to go a direction they don't like, will they figure out a way to change the rules so that, guess what, we're just going to do convention style now where we're going to pick? And we shouldn't also presume that whomever these party insiders doing the picking, they're not necessarily going to all be on the same page. I have no idea, nor do I believe, quote, they have any idea how it is that they are going to manipulate the process to get whom it is that they want, and when I say they want, whom they even is. This is the sort of unpredictability that comes with the chaos of having any sort of infrastructure, in this particular case, the Democrat Party, that no longer has any adherence to the rules. The rules are only there to enforce when it benefits them. When they don't benefit them, of course, then the rules are out the window. We see that with immigration. We see that with every other issue under the sun. And so that means it becomes very difficult to predict what it is they're going to do and at what point it can completely change course. But my bet is against Democrats going back to the aughts, the good old days in which they just had a fair fight and everyone got out there and raised money and campaigned and the people spoke whether we like it or not. Those days are over for the Democrat Party. The party of, quote, democracy? I don't think so. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. There's a big to-do going on right now about there's a GoFundMe to help pay for James Vanderbeek's funeral and cover medical expenses. And, they say it's because, all the medical bills and they just didn't have any money left. Well, there's some backlash because his family just shifted, I guess, from lease to purchase their $4.7 million estate. And people are like, what the heck's going on? And some people are arguing, well, you got to do that for this and that. And listen, when it comes to a death in the family and those sort of financial situations, sometimes it is messy. Sometimes what seems to be logical isn't. And sometimes you don't plan at all, which leads to family being out in the cold. And so, Ozarks Elder Law, this is what they do. They make sure that when that moment does come, you and your family you've passed on, but you're not leaving your family high and dry when they could have been taken care of with a few simple steps. Get it done right. Free consultation, ozarkselderlaw.com.